Good afternoon. I'm Huntington Beach Mayor Kim Carr, and I'm extremely grateful that you are here to stand with us today. I'm sure it wasn't easy for you to take part of your beautiful Sunday afternoon to participate in a virtual meeting, but you're here because you recognize how important it is to be present, to honor the diversity that makes our city so incredible, and to stand united as one HB. As you know, Huntington Beach has been in the news quite a bit. Our city has been targeted by white supremacist groups who are trying their best to divide us. We've seen hate groups create social media posts, distribute leaflets, and drum up support for their divisive and hurtful ideology. Here in Huntington Beach, we embrace the Here in Huntington Beach, we embrace the First Amendment and we welcome diverse and different points of view. But when people hide behind the First Amendment to promote their hateful rhetoric, it will be called out. We here in Huntington Beach encourage people to have thoughtful, meaningful, and hard conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion. When people have the opportunity to get together and really share their stories with one another, we get to know one another. We get to see each other for who we really are. And we all know that words have power. They can heal communities and they can provide comfort, but they can also hurt, intimidate, and incite acts of violence and crime. This past week, the Huntington Beach City Council took some much needed steps to heal our community by overwhelmingly passing 3 items to denounce hate groups, hate crimes and incidents, the KKK, and create events like today's virtual meeting where we can all come together. But I know, and my fellow council members know, that words on paper don't mean much if they're not backed up by actions. And we are doing the following to do those decisive actions right now. We're posting all reported hate crimes and incidents on the city's diversity, equity, and inclusion website. And we're looking at ways to make reporting hate crimes and incidents even easier. We're working with our Human Relations Task Force, our Huntington Beach Police Department, and community stakeholders to craft solutions to combat hate crimes and hate incidents. And we're creating outreach opportunities like today's events, which will celebrate Surf City's diverse community and restore our aloha spirit. So today we stand against hate, and we are committed to building an Orange County where everyone feels safe and welcomed. I'm grateful that every local official who represents Huntington Beach at the state and federal level is joining us today. Their presence not only demonstrates the importance of this issue to our residents, but also presents a fine example of how we can all come together from all walks of life to combat hate in our community. So at this time, I want to thank Senator Tom Umberg, Senator Dave Min, Assemblywoman Connie Petrie-Norris, Assemblywoman Janet Nguyen, Orange County Board of Supervisor Katrina Foley, and Austin Mejia from Congresswoman Michelle Steele's office. We have a packed agenda today, and I want to give everyone ample opportunity to speak. But first, I'd like to share a quick video that highlights the importance of diversity in our communities. Go ahead with the video. Thank you.
There are people out there that would consider me, quote unquote, I hate this word, but a terrorist.
As an Indigenous person, you were known as somebody who potentially could be a drunk, have substance abuse issues.
Being Indian, they may have expected me to know a lot about computers.
It's sometimes a really unique experience navigating the world as a person with a disability who looks to be completely able-bodied.
He made a comment about, well, don't worry about this that's going on, because you won't be here too much longer. You'll be off having your next baby soon.
Most women are, told they need to behave a certain way.
People really think that my generation is lazy.
Just another blonde waitress.
Hey, do you rap?
The only black girl.
I didn't belong.
I guess kind of growing up, people made these assumptions about what I was supposed to be, but it was really eye-opening for me to realize that I had been making those same assumptions myself.
We all like to think that we're inclusive, but sometimes we don't actually step back and think, wait a second, did I hear everybody in the room?
I mean, don't judge is the message, but it's also hard not to.
I always thought that every gay man was flamboyant and rude.
The older generation is set in their ways.
Initially, I thought there was something weird about a girl who would want to be a camera operator because of the word cameraman, and we still have to work past these things and stuff.
I went into the school on my first day, and there's these little girls, and they're wearing hijabs, and I was really intimidated by that.
Have your initial judgments, but also be willing to learn.
My definition of inclusion is a world and a society in which constructed barriers have been torn down.
Inclusion for me is setting up an environment where everybody is comfortable.
Open to accept other people's opinions.
All individuals, regardless of their diversity, feel welcomed, feel respected.
It means that they don't have to try to be what others expect them to be.
Change is possible, but it takes the right person to make a change happen.
I had a shop floor supervisor who stood up for me and sent out a company-wide email saying that Robin has every legal right to use the women's change rooms. It's funny because you do find allies in some of the strangest places.
One thing we can do to support inclusion is to talk about it.
You have to demonstrate that you're committed to this.
Get to know people around you. Do something different. Learn something different. Learn about a culture.
Different races, different religions, different belief systems, and see what there's good in all those things.
Be an active listener. That's one of the things I practice with other immigrants as well.
Open up your mind and take your time and get to know someone. Instead of putting them in this box, just showing that interest, it's gonna surprise you.
Ask me a stupid question. I don't care if it's a stupid question, just ask me.
I'm an open book and willing to answer them.
I don't see it as a negative thing. I see it as a teachable moment.
Just ask me how to pronounce my name.
It's simple. You decide that other people's feelings and experiences matter.
We need to have more uncomfortable conversations so that we can drive more inclusion. And oftentimes, it's not easy.
And it's important, otherwise change will never happen.
My name is Shomodeep Ganguly, but people call me Sam.
I am Layla Karem.
Mutsa Matanga.
Ms. Geneviève Leblanc.
Ashley Pasila.
Patrick Duff.
Neil McLaughlin.
Helena Gottschling.
Rod Bulger.
Jessica Shue.
Kazim Marcano. I'm a chef and I forge metals.
A proud mother.
Forklift operator and a truck driver.
I envision a day when we can just be so accepting of each other, where we can make space for others.
Thank you so much for that video. So now I'm going to turn it over to California State Senator Tom Umberg, who represents the 34th District. And that district includes Anaheim, Fountain Valley, Garden Grove, Los Alamitos, Midway City, Orange, Rossmore, Santa Ana, Seal Beach, Westminster, and of course, Huntington Beach. Senator Umberg, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Mayor Carr. What a powerful video. Oh my goodness, that was really moving. Thank you and Councilmember Moser for putting this together. It's so important that elected officials speak with one voice against hate. The reason it's so important is because those who are out protesting today, those white supremacists, they actually think that others believe as they do. They're just not as bold. They're afraid to express their views. That's not true. We know that's not true. Back in the day, I prosecuted hate crimes. In fact, a hate crime right next door in Westminster where some white supremacist skinheads tried to drive an African-American family out of their yard, out of their home. And they truly believed that certain messages being delivered by elected officials were encouraging them. I know it's hard for us to believe because these crimes aren't committed because of avarice or passion. They're committed in order to drive a message, to terrorize a group of people. that maybe don't look like them. And that those messages they're looking for are very subtle and to us imperceptible. Messages like, the Jews will not replace us, that white supremacists are fine people, where you call this horrible pandemic, you call it the China flu. Those are the kinds of messages they look for because they think, golly gee, look at folks at very high places of authority. They believe as we do. So it is critically important that we come together and deliver that message that we don't think that. In fact, we abhor that. And we stand with that diverse community that you just demonstrated on that video, and we stand with you. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to say a few words here. And thank you so much for allowing us to come together again to speak with one voice. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Moser.
Thank you, Senator. Now at this time, I would like to introduce Senator Dave Menn. Senator Dave Menn represents the 37th District in California, representing cities Anaheim Hills, Costa Mesa, Irvine, Laguna Beach, Laguna Woods, Lake Forest, Newport Beach, Orange, Tustin, Villa Park, and of course, Huntington Beach. Thank you, Senator, for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Mayor Carr. Appreciate you and the Huntington Beach City Council taking such a strong stance here in organizing today's event. So I'm the son of immigrants who came to this country from Korea in 1971. And, my parents came to this country for the same reasons so many countless other generations of people have come to this country because of the values that America reflects. And I grew up believing in the American dream. I was raised to love this country and the values it reflects. And we're trying to inculcate, my wife and I, these same values of diversity, inclusion, accepting and welcoming other people for who they are into our 3 young children. So I was totally shocked to hear that the Ku Klux Klan was promoting a White Lives Matter rally throughout my district with flyers distributed in places like Newport Beach, Orange, Villa Park, Costa Mesa, and yes, Huntington Beach. It's 2021, and yet the KKK is apparently still alive and well. And so I want to echo Senator Umberg's sentiment. This is so important that we stand up and with one voice, both denounce the values of hate, but also uplift our values, our true American values. This is particularly important right now because unfortunately, Orange County, along with the rest of America, is facing an epidemic of hate. In the past year, we've seen an alarming rise in attacks against Asian Americans, both across this country and here in the Orange County as well. But this problem of hate isn't just an anti-Asian problem. In recent years, Orange County and the rest of this country, of course, has also seen a wide array of hate crimes against various marginalized communities, Jews, Muslims, African Americans, Latinos, members of the LGBTQ community, and others. Now, I want to be very clear, the rally today is protected by the First Amendment. That amendment, a core part of our Constitution, protects the rights of all Americans, even those who are disgusting and despicable racists, to freely express their views. But when those views become hateful actions, as we've seen happen all too often lately, there must be consequences. And so I want to state, my office is committed to doing everything we can to ensure that those who commit hateful acts are identified, arrested, and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. That's why one of the first things I did after taking office was to write to our state attorney general, our Orange County DA, and urge them to prosecute to the fullest extent that California law allowed those residents of our communities who broke into the Capitol building or otherwise broke the law as part of the January 6th attacks on our democracy. California state legislature is also committed to cracking down on hate crimes. And I'm pleased to say that my colleagues and I in the state legislature have proposed nearly 24 bills to address this problem. 3 of these are ones I've authored or co-authored. Senate Resolution 12, which passed unanimously, condemns anti-Asian hate. AB 57, where I'm a co-author, would strengthen anti-hate crimes training requirements for peace officers and also mandate better data collection and reporting by the California Department of Justice. And SB 764, which Senator Umberg is also authoring, would create a new domestic terrorism task force specifically tasked with monitoring and prosecuting hate crimes and acts of domestic terrorism. But legislation is important. It's not enough. We have to loudly condemn and call out hate whenever we can. It's so important that we do this because when we refuse to speak up, the message of hate becomes amplified. And those who are the targets of hate feel isolated and alone. But the truth is that we outnumber them. There are many, many, many more of us who believe in diversity, inclusion, and love, and these values than there are of them who traffic in hate, division, and racism. We are the majority, but we can't remain the silent majority, because when we speak up loudly with our values, we drown out that message of hate, as we're seeing right now on the Huntington Beach Pier, where the White Lives Matter rally apparently has been largely co-opted. So I want to thank you all for coming today to stand with us in solidarity against hate and white nationalism. Your presence here is so, so important. This rally is so, so important. And I want to encourage you all to keep speaking up to denounce hate and racism whenever and wherever you see it. Thank you so much.
There we go. Thank you, Senator. I appreciate those words. It's very powerful indeed. And thank you for all that you're doing in Sacramento to address this issue. At this time now, I'd like to turn it over to Assemblywoman Cotty Petrie-Norris, who represents District 74. District 74 encompasses the cities of Huntington Beach, Costa Mesa, Newport Beach, Irvine, Laguna Woods, and Laguna Beach. Thank you, Assemblywoman Petrie-Norris, for joining us this afternoon.
Well, thank you, Mayor Carr, and thank you, Councilwoman Moser, and the entire Huntington Beach Council for bringing us together and for bringing our community together at this pivotal moment. I am Assemblywoman Cotty Petrie-Norris, grateful to be able to join you today. Though, to be honest, like all of us, I wish we were here together under different circumstances. I wish we did not have to be here, but the simple and brutal truth is that we do have to be here today. We do have to denounce hate. We have to stand together in love, in unity, and in community. Like so many of you, when I saw those flyers announcing and advertising a KKK rally happening right here in our own backyard, I was horrified. I was disgusted. I was shocked, and perhaps naively so, because for all of the progress, and we've made a ton of progress, but for all of the progress that we have made here in Orange County, we know that sadly our community continues to have one of the highest concentrations of active hate groups and active white supremacist groups in the nation, in the entire nation. And so we are here today to reject that. We are here to denounce that. We're here to affirm that we are stronger and we are better, not in spite of our diversity, but because of our diversity, because of the richness of our diversity. And so together we will continue to fight for progress. We'll continue to fight for acceptance. We'll continue to fight for unity, no matter the color of your skin, where you were born, who you worship, what language you speak. And together we will continue to fight to make Dr. King's dream a reality, where all children of this nation are judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. So thank you. God bless you. God bless the city of Huntington Beach, and God bless these United States of America. Thank you, Mayor Carr.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. And now at this time, I would like to turn it over to Assemblywoman Janet Nguyen, who represents the 72nd Assembly District. The 72nd encompasses the cities of Garden Grove, Westminster, Fountain Valley, Los Alamitos, Seal Beach, and Huntington Beach. Thank you, Assemblywoman, for joining us this afternoon. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mayor Carr, and thank you for your leadership. I want to thank you, Councilman Mike Posey, the rest of the City Council, and the City of Huntington Beach for the invitation and for organizing this event today so that we can all unite and stand against hate. It is unfortunate that the KKK is posting flyers with their emblem around our community in bags full of rocks to instill fear into the families who live here. We're already suffering from the rise in hate crimes in the state and across our nation. The last thing our community needs is to see the KKK emblem posted on flyers in Huntington Beach or other cities in Orange County. There is no place for any group or organization that condones racism and division in our community. As a refugee myself, who came here as a young child, I too have been the victim of hate over the years. I have firsthand knowledge of how devastating and how hurtful crimes fueled racism can be. Nobody should be made to feel this fear. No one should have to live in fear. Even today, people are still being harassed, shunned, personal property has been vandalized, and in some cases, acts of physical violence and death have occurred. We would not stand for racism or violence against members of our community simply because of the color of their skin, their culture, or where they come from. Because of these horrific offenses, I held press conference back on March 25th to condone these actions and to announce the introduction of bill package to address the hate crimes committed against our communities and to hold the criminals who committed these crimes accountable. Some of these bills are: 1, a proposal to cap early release credits that prisoner can earn while serving a hate crime related sentence. 2nd, another one to allow for vertical prosecution in hate crime cases so that these criminals get the appropriate sentencing they deserve. 3rd, to create a regional task force to investigate hate crimes. 4th, will require local law enforcement agencies to post hate crime data to their websites and update them once a month versus once a year to the Department of Justice, which would then take another 18 months to make it available for us and the public. Currently, I want to thank Santa Ana Councilman Phil Becerra and also Westminster Councilman Ty Doe, who have immediately adopted our bill idea. And the cities, both cities are currently posting the data of hate crimes in their respective city on their website monthly. I also want to thank in advance Councilman Mike Posey for his effort to putting forward a similar agenda item for your city mayor to consider adopting immediately. And I want to thank you and the council in advance for your council's consideration. I've also co-authored and have continued to work with my colleagues in Sacramento on a number of bills that will increase penalty on the criminals carrying out these crimes, such as AB 262, which will classify a hate crime as a violent felony, and AB 57, which will give law enforcement the tools to better identify hate crimes so we can prosecute these criminals appropriately. Enough is enough. We must use our legislative resource to take actions for the future of our children and families, and simply condone these actions is not enough anymore. There's no place for these hate crimes in Huntington Beach, in our assembly district, in our homes, in our schools, in our state, or anywhere. We must stand together against hate. Our message will be clear today. We will not be living in fear, and we will unite against hate. Again, thank you, Mayor Carr and the rest of the council for putting and hosting this event today.
Thank you so much, Assemblywoman. Thank you so much. I appreciate those strong words. And now I'm going to turn it over to the Orange County Board of Supervisors, Katrina Foley. Katrina's district includes, in addition to Huntington Beach, Costa Mesa, Cypress, La Palma, Los Alamitos, Newport Beach, Seal Beach, Stanton, unincorporated Rossmore, portions of Buena Park, and Felton Valley. That's a lot. Thank you so much, Supervisor Foley, for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you said Newport Beach, but Newport Beach also. But thank you.
I skipped over it. You're correct.
A lot of cities. Thank you. And thank you, Mayor Carr and Councilmember Moser and the Orange County Human Relations Commission for hosting this very, very important event today. We all must unite against the hate that is trying to be spread in our community. I agree with Senator Menn and Senator Umberg. It is just shocking that in 2021, we are still having to deal with the KKK. We look back on history as a way for us to move forward. In the 1920s, you had a courageous mayor in Huntington Beach, Mayor Bowen. And Mayor Bowen at that time took a stand against the KKK. It's sad that all these years later that we are still taking a stand against the KKK. As a member of the Costa Mesa City Council for more than 12 years, we dealt with similar individuals trying to inculcate our city governance, trying to have people that represented hateful views beyond the city council, the commissions, committees. And one of the lessons that we learned from that experience is that we must all not disregard the underpinnings of hate and bigotry that come into play when we're talking about things like housing, when we're talking about parks and who gets to use our parks. We had a situation in Costa Mesa where hateful rhetoric was leading to putting boulders in parks so that our immigrant families could not play soccer in the park. That is just as much a racial incident as any other. We must make sure that our policies and our practices are also making sure to be inclusive and not representing hateful organizations. You know, we've had a really amazing year. It's been a very difficult year with COVID. You, Mayor Carr, indicated words have power. I couldn't agree more. We heard from Amanda Gorman at the inauguration. As an English major and lover of poetry, I understand the importance of words and how powerful they are. One of the things that she tried to get us to understand is the question about our human condition and how are we in 2021 still dealing with all of the past and the hateful rhetoric, discrimination, practices and policies that bring people down and refuse to acknowledge differences. Just a few words from her poetry. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? She spoke truth to power about the healing of the wounds of the past and how that is as much a part of our American identity going forward, and challenged us as Americans. The hill we climb, if only we dare, it's because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. I'm so proud of all of our legislators and elected officials on this call today, working together to repair that pain that many in our community are feeling from the past and the present. Our team here in District 2, we are committed to ideals of inclusiveness, and we are committed to rooting out policies and practices that may not on their face look discriminatory, but they have a disparate impact on individuals of color. As a 24-year practicing attorney in the employment law arena, I've worked on these cases time and time again. Sometimes it's not obvious, and we must work harder as elected officials to root out that racism, bigotry, and discrimination that isn't always obvious. As we unite together to oppose these forces who want to divide us based solely on the color of our skin, let us remember the beauty of Amanda Gorman. Let us work harder to collaborate, to share, and unite more than ever before. Let us lead with love and kindness. Thank you so much for hosting this.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Foley, for those beautiful words of poetry, and it's so meaningful to all of us. And so now I would like to turn it over to Austin Mejia. And Austin is with Michelle Steele staff representing the 48th District. The 48th District includes Aliso Viejo, Dana Point, Irvine, Laguna Beach, Laguna Hills, Laguna Niguel, Laguna Woods, Lake Forest, Tustin, Irvine, Newport Beach, San Juan Capistrano, and of course, right here in our backyard, Huntington. So thank you so much, Austin, for joining us.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Austin Mejia. I'm here on behalf of Congresswoman Michelle Steele, who represents the 40th Congressional District. She would like me to thank the mayor, council, and city staff for putting on today's event. And she has a brief statement, which I'm going to be reading from. Hate has no home here. It is up to all of us to support each other and stand up for what is right. We live in the best place in the whole country, and we need to protect it and each other. I'm sorry I could not join today, but I applaud your work and solidarity against hate here and around the nation. Congresswoman Michelle Steele. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Austin. And before I turn it over to my fellow council member, Natalie Moser, I just want to thank all of the members of the Huntington Beach City Council for making this event possible. This was voted on a 7-0 decision. So thank you so much to Mayor Pro Tem Tito Ortiz, Natalie for bringing this item forward, Councilmember Dan Kalmick, Councilmember Barbara Del Glaze, Councilmember Mike Posey, and did I forget anybody? I think that's everybody. But I just am so grateful to have such a united council. Oh, I'm sorry, and Eric Peterson. I did forget somebody, Councilmember Eric Peterson. I'm really grateful that everybody came together and saw how important this particular event was. So I just wanted to send a heartfelt thank you to all of my council members who recognize the importance of this event and want to continue doing the good work going forward. So with that, Councilmember Natalie Moser, I'm going to turn the presentation over to you now. And thank you again for helping put this together.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mayor Carr, and thank you all of the elected officials who are here demonstrating our unity as a community in Huntington Beach and beyond. Good afternoon. Again, thank you all for being here, those who are here on the Zoom, on YouTube, and also on Facebook. We come together today as a community, as neighbors, to acknowledge the pain and the fear that exists in our community. We also come together to rise up against the hatred that creates that fear. The truth is, we perpetuate and manufacture more hate by not addressing it, its history, its impact, and its presence, even today in 2021. As leaders, we make resolutions and declarations condemning hate and declaring what we stand for: a kinder, more compassionate, more welcoming and inclusive community. But those actions are insufficient. They are just a start. We need to stand in and stand up, not because it's the flavor of the month, but because it's just the right thing to do. We need to send a loud message that HB stands with our Black, Indigenous, people of color, our friends and neighbors, many of whom are living in fear right now. Everyone deserves to feel safe living here and know that we stand with you. It is not the resolutions that we make, but the actions that we take as elected officials and as community members that will determine our success as a welcoming, diverse, equitable, and inclusive Huntington Beach. Our actions are statements of our values, and today we act by coming together virtually to share ways that we can stop being bystanders and instead become upstanders. We want to make our community the best it can be. When there are problems and pain, it is our collective responsibility to identify and rectify them, to heal the wounds, and to make HB better. Like a forest of trees whose roots are all connected, so are we. We are a system of neighbors. When one of us is hurting, we are all hurting. We are working on many different fronts to heal the hurt for this and for future generations. That will take more than our efforts today. It will take consistency. As I've already mentioned, today is not enough. We must guard against complacency, always striving and never settling, to make our community more inclusive, not because it's convenient, but because it's necessary. And finally, we need to move out of comfort. We must sacrifice our comfort. We won't make real progress until those who are unaffected by hate, bigotry, racism, and misogyny are as moved to action as those who are affected by it. In addition to the actions we take today, I'm looking forward to deep and difficult community conversations that we will be hosting and that I hope our community will continue in their own living rooms This is something that has brought me initially into public service on the Human Relations Task Force, later as the chair of the Human Relations Task Force. And it's one of the main things that's really motivated me even to come here on City Council. Also, we look forward to celebrating with a community picnic and celebration in person next Sunday, April 18th, in our beautiful HB Central Park. I hope that everyone will join, and I promise you we'll be sharing more information about that soon. But now I'd like to introduce my friend and our current chair of the Huntington Beach Human Relations Task Force, Vasya VC Rome. From this, oops, hold on, one monitor, there we go. From the Syrian border as a missionary to being commended by President Obama for assisting abused women and children, VC Roan's life experiences motivate her to help others live their best lives. She is a multi-format content creator who transforms the good, the bad, and the ugly into stories that shine a light on women, cultures, and social injustice. As chairperson of the Human Relations Task Force, she has implemented several programs and initiatives to promote healthy conversations within the community. Take it away.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me today. A special thank you to Mayor Carr, Councilmember Moser, and all elected officials who are here today. I'm going to do something a little bit different. We can definitely go along with the slides. You know, often we talk about the formation of the task force, but we don't talk enough about the why. And so before I say anything else, I would like for us to never forget this name, Vernon Wendell Flournoy. He was murdered here in Huntington Beach by a white supremacist, by two white supremacists on September 15th, 1994. About 2 years later, on May 6th, 1996, the Huntington Beach City Council adopted a declaration of policy about human dignity, which later prompted the formation of the task force in 1997. You can go to the next slide. So normally we would read this, and then this is great, but I just wanted to put it in perspective of why we're doing what we do. The Huntington Beach Human Relations Task Force promotes and celebrates diversity in our community through education and understanding. We are also very, very big on working with the police department to enforce and monitor all incidents that could be classified as hate crimes. And something else I'd like to comment on as we go to the next slide. We believe strongly in taking preventative actions and developing programs to encourage community education, interaction, and relationship building. Within the Human Relations Task Force, I want to let everyone out there listening know we are your neighbors, we are your friends, we are your colleagues. We may not always respond to what we see on social media or in the various Facebook groups, but know that we are listening. We're listening to the comments that support our efforts, and we're also listening to the comments that challenge us. And some of the programs that we offer, one right now we have going on is the AAPI Cultural Cinema Showcase that's happening and will debut in May next month. We just closed out all of our submissions, and we host the Cultural Cinema Showcase 4 times per year. For Black History Month, Asian Pacific Heritage Month, Hispanic Heritage Month, and Native American Heritage Month. And since its inception in 2019, the showcase has received, well now, it's close to 2,000 submissions since we last wrote this. And we have screened over 250 short films. We also do our best to work with the Huntington Beach Library to host story time with the author. And we have had 2 years now, Caldecott honor Andrea J. Loney has joined us. We host the annual Day of Dialogue. We co-host this with OC Human Relations, and it's a day-long gathering of students from various Huntington Beach Union High School District schools, consisting of human relations activities facilitated by the OC Human Relations. Through interactive activities, discussions, and brainstorming of various diversity issues commonly experienced by students on high school campuses, attendees come together to learn about each other's perspectives and explore ways to create an HBU HSD where all people feel safe, connected, and respected. The Community Summit, we started this last year. It's a 5-day virtual summit, providing residents with an opportunity to practice listening to each other's stories. And one of our mottos that we like to share is that we speak without offending and we listen without defending. And the Community Summit is an opportunity for community members to listen to one another's stories and experiences here within Huntington Beach. And just as we offer the opportunity to listen, HB Listens is actually an opportunity to speak. So HB Listens encourages and promotes speaking and communication in small groups. We're happy to announce that we will be having a community dialogue event co-hosted by the Orange County Human Relations on Thursday, April 22nd at 6 p.m. as we reintroduce HB Listens, which had been on a little bit of a hiatus due to COVID, and we will have registration information available next week. The Youth Voices HB Essay and Art Contest is open to all HBUHSD and or Huntington Beach High School students. Students are given essay prompts and art guidelines based on specific themes, and then they submit completed works for newspaper publication. And we do have a committee that is actively working on this. We'll launch it in the fall, and we will be going live with it in 2022. And before I turn it over, I just want to say one thing, that we're committed to bringing everyone to the table for healthy dialogue, and we're actively reaching out to community leaders, past and present. It's important for all of us to remember that a community-wide effort to promote human dignity is an important element in building a better community. Thank you so much, Councilmember Moser and Mayor Carr, for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Chairperson Roan. I appreciate everything that you do. Now I'd like to welcome Dr. Ding-Jo Curry. Dr. Ding-Jo Curry's career includes 40 years in the California higher education systems. Since she retired as Chancellor of Coast Community College District, she is currently a Distinguished Professor of Higher Education Leadership at CSU Fullerton. Dr. Curry and her husband Mark have been holding spiritual dialogues in their home for over 6 years. Sorry. Now on Zoom, actually, which I got to attend recently, gathering people of all backgrounds to dialogues and inspire action in the community towards harmony and unity. Thank you, Dr. Curry. Now I'd like to introduce you and let you go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. As a longtime resident, a community member of Huntington Beach, I am privileged to have a spot in this gathering to share my thoughts, feelings, my voice, and action with you. The video that was shown earlier spoke to me about how we're just like my 7-month-old grandson, Alder, who is seeing, feeling, touching, and tasting so many new things for the very first time. He didn't reject the newness. He delights in it with curiosity and playfulness. But once in a while, though, he will burst out crying and frown and turn his head from something, not knowing what it is, as that fear sets in quickly. We too, I believe, wholeheartedly are experiencing something new in this era of human history. From macro diversity that have always existed in all the different continents on this planet, to the micro diversity now exists in our own community. Just think about Orange County 50 years ago, and then Huntington Beach today. As we said earlier, words are powerful, and we have lots of new words labeling a lot of new things that we didn't know about. Some of us, like myself, as an immigrant, delights in these new experiences. And after all, I have to, since my survival depends on how I adjust well in this new and diverse context. But some of us retreat to the familiar and stay within our comfort zone. And some of us feel frustrated, filled with anger, and threatened by the fear of losing. Losing what? Losing the freedom of being who we are, saying what we want, behave without having to be concerned about offending or harming someone. Well, the fear of being overwhelmed by the unfamiliar, the unknown, drive us to hostilities, isolations, and segregations, and yes, to a degree of hatred. Not because anything done by any particular person or group, but simply that inner fear and perceived threat overpowers the ability to reason, to empathize, and to love. For those who felt the necessity of holding a White Lives Matter rally, I say to you, you are also members of my community. I understand the fear that you have for Black Lives Matters taking over the prominent stations that you have had in this country. I just don't want to believe it's a statement of your hate as much as perhaps a statement, an expression of your fear of losing power and control. I don't want to believe that you have hatred in your heart. On the contrary, I want to believe you too have humanity, have a soul and a heart. You want exactly the same thing as anyone whose skins are not happen to be white. I feel deeply that if we relate to each other as spiritual beings and not as physical beings with different eye colors or hair colors or skin colors, then we see and can feel each other's joy, pain, sorrow, worries, and happiness. For this reason, the spiritual dialogues were born in our living room. I'm fortunate that I have a white Buckeye husband who wants to learn about the lives of those who are not white, to understand the lived experiences of different ages, income, culture, gender, religions, and so on. We found the need to create a space to help people see, they hear, they engage, they learn, share, touch, discuss, question, and reflect through different aspects of our lives, from health, healing, poverty and wealth, feminism, religious doctrines, political ideologies, racism, justice, and everything and anything that sets us apart. That's the first step, to come together and learn the vast different perspectives that come from our diversity. What I witnessed in these spiritual dialogues is the shift in people's mindset, attitudes, and beliefs, understanding, and their biases as well as a result. One example, like Jeff Shoup, who was a prominent neo-Nazi leader for 27 years. His transformation came as a result of encountering the lived experiences of a Black man, Daryl Davis, and a Muslim woman, Dia Khan. His center of gravity shifted, which he thought he was so right, that old belief. He can no longer reconcile with that old belief. Truly, he thought for 27 years he was so right to fight for that. In Dia Khan's words in experiencing Jeff, she said, Jeff is a loving person and who is a great leader, showing such care for his team. This is her experience of Jeff in Charlottesville, leading the neo-Nazis. His team back then was the neo-Nazis. Jeff left them and embraced a new family. He is still exerting his strength as a leader, but now with a group, this is important, with a group who is willing to forgive his past and embrace him, and working together now so advocately toward race unity. I know there are future Jeffs in the White Lives Matters. I know there are future Jeffs in the KKK. I know they are there. Our spiritual dialogues is an open invitation for those of you who are in the White Lives Matter or KKK or any of those hate groups who may fear the different. I welcome you to dialogue. For those of you who are attending this event today, you might not want to host a spiritual dialogues like my husband, Mark, and me, but everyone can contribute so differently toward unity. I am not an anti-you or anti-this or anti-that. I am not for words that divide us further toward polarization. Rather, I am inviting all to walk together away from hatred and division and join the journey toward the oneness of humanity, and join us to work on toward our harmony and unity in this diversity. So each of us can create new spaces and practice of inclusion in the space that we occupy. There are just so many needs and so many things you can do. So do something proactive to reach out and expand the circle of inclusion. Start with your neighbors, start with parents of your children's school. When each of us take an action toward that goal of harmony and unity in diversity, then that's when change happens in our community. That's when we can chase out the hatred. So I want to close by sharing this quote that is so profound for me and true. Like Margaret Mead said, "Never doubt a small group of thoughtful and committed citizens like you could change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So let you and I, as citizens and community members here, start together now. Because if it's not us, who? If it's not now, I ask when. And if it's not here, where?" I thank you for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much for being here and for that invitation to join on that journey towards unity, Dr. Curry. That was very profound and impactful. And it reminded me that, you know, when we reach our arms out, that 3 feet of distance, that's where we need to start, what we can actually touch. So thank you so much for being here today. Now, I'd like to introduce Allison Edwards, CEO of OC Human Relations. Allison has been involved with the organization since 1998. She served as program director for the Bridges program and then deputy director of the organization before becoming CEO in late 2017. Allison has a passion for leadership and has served as a leadership trainer and speaker. Welcome, Allison.
Thank you. Thank you so much for including OC Human Relations here today. My name is Allie Edwards. I use she, her pronouns. And at OC Human Relations, we believe that all people deserve to live free of hate and discrimination. One of the ways that we try to contribute to this mission is that we partner with the County of Orange to track and report hate activity in the county. And so I have to, and every chance we get, remind everyone that you can report hate activity to our office. You can go to our website. We also have a phone number that you can call, and I'll make sure to post those in the chat as I finish my remarks. Those reports are confidential. You can report to us if you prefer not to report to law enforcement. We can still take your report, or if you would like someone to walk through that process with you, if you do choose to report to law enforcement, we're here to support you in that as well. Those reports are so important in the fight against hate. That's how we can communicate what's happening in our communities to our leaders, and to find ways to work with our leaders to take action and to find good policy that helps us to move forward in the fight for racial equity. Today, we're here to take a stand with all of you, a stand against hate, racism, white supremacy, and those who would attempt us to fear one another. We're thankful to cities like Huntington Beach who have been proactive in hosting events and making statements, and to all of our elected officials that joined us here today. Want to really appreciate all the different policy changes that were enumerated, because we need all of our leaders in this fight with us. We need everyone to join together to make these statements and to be clear of the type of communities and cities that we're trying to create here in Orange County. Places where everyone can thrive and feel a sense of belonging. This week, our organization released a statement of solidarity, and we had hundreds of organizations and leaders and individuals sign. That support really lets us know that we can win this fight for racial equity. And we'd invite any of you that are here today to join in signing that as well. Today, I am here with my colleague Don Hahn to give you all some tips for fighting hate and bigotry when you see it in the moment. For some of us, we maybe don't experience this day to day, and it can be quite shocking if it happens and you're witness to it. Just this week, we started to hear the story of Sakura Kokumai, the Olympic athlete who was verbally accosted at a park in Orange while she trained to represent her country. In her remarks, she mentioned that it was not till the very end of this 20-minute assault that anyone even intervened or said anything to her. Finally, someone asked her if she was okay when it was over. I think it's an example that tells us that we need to be prepared for these things to happen. We need to know how we can respond in the moment instead of being shocked or frozen into inaction. Let's be ready. Let's be prepared. Let's be ready to stand with those who need us in that moment. And today we want to make sure that we can help you be ready for when that happens. So let's be ready to take a stand, and let's be ready to continue to ask our leaders to stand with us and look for those good policy initiatives that can support our work for the racial equity and the movement that we're all part of. With that, I'd like to introduce you all to my colleague, Don Hahn. He is the Director of Operations of our organization, as well as a hate crime specialist.
Thank you so much, Allison. Thanks for having me here today. As Allison mentioned, that our vision is we believe that all people have the right to live free from discrimination and violence. So whatever fall into those two words there, we will try our best to support Orange County in doing so. So as Alice said, that in order for us to understand and respond to hate, we have to know what it is. So I wanted to go over a very brief definition of a hate crime. Next slide, please. There's 2 slides before that. Nope, the other way. No, you need to go back 2, 3 more slides. Okay. So go back to the other slide, please. There you go. So hate crime, first of all, it has to be a crime, right? So if a crime is against an individual or community that is impartial or in whole because of who they are under their protected class, and that's a hate crime. For the majority of the time that we receive the call or the report here in Orange County, oftentimes is hate incidents. Hate incident is actually protected by our First Amendment. Verbal harassment, text messages harassing you, or even a hate mail. Those leaflets of the KKK that are being placed on an unknown neighbors or street or shop and things like that. Those hate incidents. Oftentimes, law enforcement is overwhelmed and they're not able to respond because of the capacity or whatever the reason, and it's not a crime. Now, if a verbal harassment become a threat, for example, that is a crime. Now it escalated to the level of a crime, right? So the other things that for the years that I've been part of being a hate crime prevention specialist for the agency, and also the person who have the privilege to respond, is that either if the person experiences a hate crime or hate incidents, the impact doesn't really too far apart from each other, right? So the American Psychological Association recognized that this type of attack, verbally or physically, take place on 2 different levels. Not only is it attack on one person's physical self, for example, but it's also attack on that one person's very identity. For example, I was responding to a hate crime. A person called law enforcement to report that she woke up getting ready to take her children to school. This is before COVID. And in front of the driveway, someone graffiti the whole driveway with racial slur. Now, if that racial slur would have said in verbally, that would be an incident. But in this case, their home, their driveway was vandalized. Their own property was vandalized with hate slurs. And that's a crime. It's sent an anxiety for her and her family, where now that 26 years of living in that home, the place they felt most safe become unsafe. Just imagine how does that work psychologically for us, for people who have been impacted. Oftentimes when I go out and respond to these hate crime or hate incidents, the people who've been impacted by it usually ask me, why me? What did I do wrong? And my question to them is, you didn't do anything wrong. I don't know why it's you, but we're here to support you. We're here to make sure that you are being supported and you're not alone. Next slide, please. So as Ali's mentioned, we track hate crime and hate incidents and also try to respond to them when it's appropriate. In the last 10 years, this is the chart, but in the last five or six years, we have seen the trend of hate crime and hate incidents on the rise here in Orange County. In 2019, we have 158 hate incidents reported and 78 hate crime. People always said, you live in a county with 3 million people. 78 doesn't seem that big of a number. To me, 1 is a big of a number. Until you become a victim of a hate crime or hate incidents, then you would know the impact of that. Next slide, please. So as Senator Dave Min mentioned that we all have seen and witnessed the rise of anti-Asian hate. Typically, the years that I've been serving the organization for the last 20 years or so, typically the top 3 targeted group in Orange County were African-American, LGBTQ member, or the anti-Semitic or Jewish community. Every now and then there's things that's happening either locally or nationally, or even in the world that impacted that trend. In 2020, at the very beginning, we're beginning to notice that there's a rising trend on hate incidents against our AAPI community here in Orange County. One of the first cases that came in January of 2020 was a man standing in line to get food at the McDonald's. Someone behind him would start harassing him and calling him names. Go back to China, and things like that. And he couldn't quite figure it out, like, why was he being harassed? Because he's been living in the community for a long, long time. And his children were born here. The last thing the person said to him was, don't bring coronavirus to our country. So he started making that connection that this pandemic, unfortunately, has a name like China virus, right? People describing them and calling it and point fingering at the Asian community. Unfortunately, we received tenfold of the hate incidents reported in Orange County in 2020. In 2019, we only received 4 cases. In the year 2020, we received 40 cases. Next slide, please. So in 2017, our agency launched a campaign called No Hate. And that campaign was a social media campaign, is to educate our community about what is hate. Know it, understand it, and change it. Know what it is, know the difference between hate crime and hate incidents, know how to report it, and know where to get your resources. Understand how it's impacting our community and how could we do better to change it. This is one of the most successful campaigns we have launched in Orange County. In fact, right before COVID-19, we were about getting ready to launch this campaign for the state of California. And we started at one session and we had to put it down momentarily because we were not able to complete the work because of the pandemic. Next slide, please. So speaking up against hate and all racism, if it's safe to do, you gotta interrupt hate. You gotta interrupt racism. The way we would interrupt it is that you could directly tell people, hey, that's not appropriate. What you said is not appropriate, or what you do is not appropriate, right? If it's safe to do, you could question the person. How do you get your facts? You know, how do you come to assumption that this virus is a Chinese virus? Right? People do make mistakes. We all make mistakes, including myself. Sometimes I say things I didn't mean or understand. Right? If people do make mistakes, like Dr. Dinju Curry said earlier, we got to call people in instead of calling people out. And part of that is to educate. Educating folks from your own perspective and also willing to educate ourselves by hearing other people's perspective could eliminate hate, right? Last but not least is the prime example that we have here is to echo all the upstandard effort done against racism. The city of Huntington Beach is a primary example of that. Please echo all the leaderships, all of you, for being here. Echo your own effort, echo your colleague, echo your friends, echo your family, that we can do something to prevent hate. Next slide, please. So you can keep on clicking and then other bullet point will come up. So if you're a victim of a hate crime, back one more. Please give the immediately a call and report and get support. Obtain medical attention if needed. If you're not comfortable to call, please get someone to help you. If it's a crime, please leave all the evidence as is. Please do not touch anything because that's a crime scene and they need to be investigated as authentic as it is. Now, if you have a chance or you can have the capacity to do it, document what happened, get the witness to support you, get their name, get their phone number. If you can, take a picture of the perpetrator or have a description of the perpetrator who committed the crime or the incident, that would be very helpful for us. Last but not least, as Allison mentioned earlier, if you're not comfortable of reporting this to law enforcement, please call us. The number is 714-480-6580. That's a direct line to our specialists. So we also have a website that you could go on to that link and fill out a form. Next slide, please. Oh, sorry. Back one more before I introduce Silo. The reporting is anonymous. You could stay anonymous and it's highly confidential. So please do not be afraid to contact us, even to ask us questions. I experienced this. Is this a hate crime or is it a hate incident? You know, can you give me your feedback? Any reporting is better than none. So thank you so much for allowing us to be with you today.
Thank you so much, Don. I appreciate you being here today and for giving us these practices that we can use within our community. And now I'd like to introduce Cielo Chavarria, Fountain Valley High School senior. Cielo currently serves as a student board member for OC Human Relations and has been involved with OC Human Relations for the last 4 years as a Human Relations Ambassador and Bridges Club President. She also has the privilege of serving as the president of the Fountain Valley High School Bridge Builders Club, which organizes educational activities to create historical awareness, cultural appreciation, and improve student relations. Cielo will be attending Wellesley College this fall as a political science major with the goal to become a lifelong public servant devoted to a more inclusive and just community. Take it away, Cielo.
Thank you, Councilmember Moser. Good afternoon, everyone. As Councilmember shared, my name is Cielo Chavarria. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm very grateful to be sharing this day of unity with you all. As the Councilmember shared, I'm a senior at Fountain Valley High School, where I'm very proud to work for a more inclusive and loving campus as president of the OC Human Relations Bridges Club. I also have the honor of serving as a student board member of the OC Human Relations Board of Directors. This afternoon, I'd like to thank the City of Huntington Beach and OC Human Relations for standing boldly against hate and for bringing us here together in celebration of our unity and our diversity. I'd like to thank Ms. Allison Edwards and Mr. Donhan of OC Human Relations who extended me the opportunity to share today. And I'd like to recognize Mayor Carr, Councilmember Moser, Councilmember Del Glaze, and Councilmember Kalnick for voting to denounce hate and reaffirming the city's commitment to an inclusive community. As youth and as leaders of tomorrow, we deeply appreciate that today's leaders, our role models, possess an unwavering commitment to justice and to a more loving community. I want to thank Supervisor Foley, Assemblywoman Petrie Norris, Assemblywoman Nguyen, Senator Tom Umberg, Senator Dave Min, and Austin Mejia of Congresswoman Steele's office for standing in solidarity today. As elected officials, as adults, you must ask yourself, what kind of America will you bequeath to us, your sons, daughters, and grandchildren? Will you bequeath us a house divided or a house built upon a rock? And as youth, we must ask ourselves, what kind of America will we create? And for all of us, what will we contribute to the legacy of social justice in our community, in our county, and in our country? History calls on each of us. It demands us to stand against hate and rise above it, or we will be suffocated by it. I choose to rise above, and I want to rise above alongside you. Our founding fathers had great vision, but their vision was deeply and fundamentally flawed. It was exclusionary and dehumanizing to African Americans, Indigenous Americans, Latino Americans, Asian Americans, people of different faiths, people with disabilities, people of the LGBTQ+ community, working class people, and immigrants and refugees. Their vision excluded women, including their own mothers, wives, and daughters. That's not condemnation, it's observation. So it now falls onto us to undo their exclusion and choose inclusion. That is our privilege and that is our calling. And as we stand here today, we look to those who have stood up against hate throughout our history. It is because of the suffragettes who stood up against hate and the oppression of women that Mayor Carr, Councilmember Moser, Supervisor Foley, Assemblywoman Petrie Norris, and Assemblywoman Nguyen, and Congresswoman Steele can vote and hold office. It is because of the abolitionists and civil rights activists who recognized that Black Lives Matter and that we are all human beings with equal value. It is because of their vision and their courage that we've moved forward toward justice. It is because of African American and Latino American soldiers who fought in the Vietnam and Korean War that we know that there is power in our unity and multiracial coalitions, that we recognize that Black Lives Matter and that Asian hate is wrong. Hate is wrong. And over history, we've united as allies. Suffragettes were also abolitionists, and abolitionists were also suffragettes. Martin Niemöller, a German pastor, wrote this poem. First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. This is why we are here in unity, in solidarity with one another as allies. This is why we speak up against hate, and we do it together. And as we look to history, we recognize that we too will be judged by history. Our words and our actions will affect the lives of our grandchildren. Archimedes, a Greek mathematician and inventor, said, "Give me a place to stand and I will move the world." As youth, we have the power of the future. Where do we stand and what direction will we move the world? Those at the foot of our ocean today stand for hate, and they're moving backwards. Their hoods have blinded them from seeing that all human beings are inherently equal. They've constructed walls of racism, nativism, and sexism. These walls are the barriers to justice, to equality, to freedom, to democracy, and to a more perfect union. And we have a responsibility to break down these walls, to unveil truth, and to believe in and work towards justice. Martin Luther King said, "We cannot legislate morality." This is not a matter of law. This is a matter of our hearts and our humanity. The solution to ending hate is in our hearts. If we truly stand for justice, we must embody justice, not just perform it. Social justice demands that we be models of decent human beings. We must live our lives and construct a society that dignifies all human beings, a society that recognizes that Black lives matter, a society that stops Asian hate, a society that recognizes and treats immigrants as human beings. And as humans, we have the opportunity to lend a helping hand. We can educate ourselves and teach others to respect one another. We have the power to heal one another through kindness. Bobby Kennedy said, "It is from numberless diverse acts of courage that human history is thus shaped." Each time a man stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. And crossing each other a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples build a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. Our acts of courage, of kindness, of respect are all sewn into the fabric of this country. With our words and actions, we must continue to weave together a community where there's no more room for one thread of hate. I urge you to stand for justice and equality and to move the world forward. Thank you for allowing me to stand in solidarity with you all and share a little bit with you all today.
If you could drop the mic, Cielo, you would do that right now. I am so inspired. I think your questions move us to action. What will we bequeath you? What kind of America will we create? I know that I want to rise above alongside of you too. And I look forward to all that you will do to help create the America where all of us embody justice and where we surf those ripples together. So thank you. And now I would like to welcome Bella Brannon. Bella Brannon is a graduating senior from Ocean View High School and an incoming freshman at UCLA. Currently, she serves as the State Director of Activism for the Junior State of America, where she advocates for youth civic engagement, voter registration, and civil discourse. Born and raised in Huntington Beach, Bella cherishes our beautiful beaches, vibrant community, and knows hate has no home here. Thank you, Bella.
Thank you so much for that lovely introduction, and thank you everyone for standing together here today. Today is a scary, scary day. We are inevitably reminded that hate exists, that it's in our faces and in our backyards. It's fathoming and harrowing to know that the archetypal organization of hate mongering felt safe and more so welcomed in our beloved home, that they thought they'd find support and galvanization amongst our community, but they won't, because they are not welcome. They are not what defines Huntington Beach, and we must not let them. We are the beautiful display of love, light, diversity, and community in this virtual room. As Martin Luther King Jr. said, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. Huntington Beach is a city of love. Here, when city council candidate signs get knocked down on a windy night, Thomas Laparme picks up not only his, but his opponents as well. In our city, Oscar Rodriguez organizes food drives so that no neighbor goes hungry in their most desperate hour. Steve and Sherry Engel care for every tree in our beautiful parks. And here, we celebrate the great American experiment with the grandest 4th of July parade. There is so much love and light in this city and in this virtual room to drive out the menace of today. And I'm here to speak from a new perspective, a youthful one, the inheritors of our city. Many of us have only ever lived in and known Huntington Beach. And as we move through life, we'd like our memories and tales to our children of the city to be hallmarked by the community and embrace and love that we've learned here, not the wretched malpractices of the KKK that persisted before us. It will take love to do that. An example. My darkest day of high school was one that followed a viral anti-Semitic incident at a local school. I arrived at school already upset from the events of the day before to find swastikas carved into desks and meticulously etched into the textbooks. As one of about 5 Jewish students in my grade, I felt helpless and alone. Even more so when one of my classmates greeted my despair with a Nazi salute and a taunting smirk. After that incident, my dear friend talked to the pseudo-Nazi about the malice and hate in their actions and encouraged them to love instead. She also took me out to my favorite Jewish deli. No one has dared to make a similar remark since. And I'm eternally grateful for that and the many Hamantaschen and Dr. Browns we shared together that night. That moment of darkness was drowned out by light, much as we are doing right now in this room. As young people, we uplift, we embrace, we value cultural thought and thoughtful diversity. We're young, but we're not starry-eyed. More so, we're terrified that this may be what our beloved city is known for, terrified that our neighbors may be among those supporting the rally. And it's undeniable. In previous decades, Huntington Beach has fostered a reputation as intolerant, mingling with similar groups. But we have taken grassroots and legislative steps to repudiate the stigma and move forward. As one of the few local cities that hosts a human relations task force dedicated to responding to incidents such as these, as well as recently passing resolutions denouncing hate crimes, with cultural celebration festivals like the Cherry Blossom and initiatives to unite, such as HB Reed's We Are United. The youth are hopeful, because we know that Huntington Beach is not a monolith. We're beautifully vibrant and beautifully diverse. Another moment of light. Every other Thursday at my high school, students flooded in the classroom at lunch for Cultural Club. We would share treasured cultural anecdotes, traditions, and enjoy prepared family recipes. We got to know one another's cultures and roots so intimately that it was impossible to bear anything but respect for one another, even if we had no clue where they were coming from. Previously, of course. This light and love drove out any pre-harbored intolerance. I never have and never will forget those special Thursdays. And I will never forget this event, because this is the community I know and love. Diversity of opinion matters too. Anyone that knows me knows that I greatly champion civil discourse, engagement, and political compromise. Indeed, free speech was the First Amendment put forth from our framers. But there's a caveat. Someone's right to preach an opinion shouldn't compromise someone else's right to exist as a person of color or someone from another faith or a member of the LGBT community. Our neighbors of color are terrified, and rightfully so. An organization that has promoted lynching and treachery has no home here. They're synonymous with hate and darkness, and that is not who we are. You may be inclined to respond downtown today, but hate will only beget hate. In this moment of crisis, we must remember that their endeavor is to solicit a response. Any opposition will be frankly used to justify violence. And no matter how upset and terrified and distraught you are, we must not resort to their level. I encourage you today to attend events like this, to check up on any friends of color you may have, direct your attention to those you love, build up our future by investing in youth, speak up online, uplift the parts of Huntington Beach that we are proud of, like our lovely community centers and human relations task force, and dine at restaurants owned by marginalized populations to kick off your spring break. You are the love. Don't forget it. Together, we are more than intolerance. We will all rise up and grow beyond, and we are Huntington Beach. Thank you so much, everyone.
Wow. Thank you so much, Bella. I'm so proud of you, and I think you already know that. But I love that you brought up so many incredible community members, your own harrowing experiences, and the way that we can light up our world amidst all of that darkness. Thank you. And before I turn it back to Mayor Carr, I would like to share a quote from Lutheran Church of the Resurrection's Reverend James Pike's sermon from this morning. And in that sermon, he said, "Communities grounded in fear and exclusion must be rejected. We are all called to live in light, peace, and forgiveness so life can flourish." I thought that was applicable given Bella's comments right now. And then finally, before I pass it back to Mayor Carr, and with Ramadan beginning tomorrow, Ramadan Mubarak to our Muslim sisters and brothers as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natalie. And there's been so many powerful speeches this afternoon, and I can't thank everybody enough for participating. Senator Umberg, Senator Min, Assemblywoman Connie Petrie-Norris, Assemblywoman Janet Wynn, Orange County Supervisor Katrina Foley, Austin Magia, thank you so much. And then everybody from Vasha at the Human Relations Task Force, Dr. Jean Joe Curry, thank you so much for your powerful speech. Allison Edwards, Don Hahn, our students, amazing speeches. I feel blessed to live in a community where our students are so articulate and are really the future. And it really makes me feel just so grateful to live in this community. And to Bella, I really thank you so much for bringing it home to Huntington Beach and really talking about those moments of light and how you live in the community, we live in the community, you know this community, and you know what's happening at the pier is not our community. And so I'm going to encourage everybody to see the real Huntington Beach. Next week on Sunday, April 18th, we're having a community picnic from 11 to 3 at Central Park. And this will be an opportunity for all of our electeds to come together again, and for not just the electeds that were here on the Zoom call today, but electeds from all of the different communities to come together and really interact with the residents here. And so we're doing this in a socially distanced, safe way. Central Park is a huge park if you're not familiar with it, but it's massive. So there's plenty of space for families to get together and really show the true heart and soul of Huntington Beach. So I'm encouraging everybody to come to that next week. And then also for anybody who was a part of this video or may have missed this video and wants to share it, we are uploading it to our YouTube page, as well as Huntington Beach has our own diversity, inclusion, equity page. Also the Human Relations Task Force will have it. And then just a couple of other points that I wanted to mention. If you are a victim of a hate crime or a hate incident, as Don Hahn mentioned, please contact your local police department and the OC Human Relations. Their website is www.ochumanrelations.org, and you can / to hate crime / report. And so with that, I want to thank everybody for participating this afternoon. Everybody, your speeches were so powerful, and I'm so grateful that we come together united to stand against hate, but not just to talk about it, but to actually do something about it. And that's what we're doing here today. So thank you again, and I look forward to seeing everybody next week at our picnic.